What's up, guys? It is Will here, back again, and we are here for another episode to recap HBO's The Last of Us Episode 2. Very, very excited about this. And we have not one, but two special guests this evening or morning, depending upon when you're listening or watching this episode. But guys, we are going to introduce our guests real quick and then, of course, recap this wonderful episode from The Last of Us on HBO. That said, we're going to cover a lot of material, but before we do that, let's address our guest, Optical 20. It's good to have you back, bro. You're something of a regular here.
Yes.
2 episodes in, something of a regular.
Sadly, yeah, I got
I know
other things to do in my life. So,
well, I'm not sure why I roped you into this one 2 in a row. So some kind of record. But how you doing, man?
Man, I'm excited. I always wanted to do this right afterwards. So I'm still hyped. Probably not a good idea too, because I'm such a fanboy.
Yeah,
so be like, yeah, you don't want to do that. So now that Monday, time to marinate it. Nothing changed. So, but yeah, it's okay.
No, nothing changed. We got 3 fanboys here to talk about Last of Us. But Josh, first time on the channel, and we've only done 2 episodes. But in the second episode, you're here, bro. Happy to have you. How you doing this evening, man?
Thanks for letting me join, man. I know we've been talking for a while about doing something together, so it's nice to finally get to talk to you guys. And we're both repping Loki, I just noticed. So
dude,
it's off to a good start.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. We're off to an amazing start. So, because we got 3 Last of Us fanboys here, we got 2 Loki fanboys, and then Optical. Is that a Hollister shirt? What is that?
I don't know, man.
It's green. It's close enough.
Yeah, it's close enough to Loki. Yeah, we're just gonna roll with it, guys. But that said, let's not waste any more time. Let's address our first question of the evening. Episode 2 of The Last of Us aired as of us recording last night, just around this time. We're recording at 7 p.m. Eastern. Last of Us aired at 9 p.m. Eastern last night on Sunday, January 22nd, 2023. Guys, I got to ask the question. Was episode 2 a satisfying continuation of episode 1? Because episode 1 was amazing, and it was a little bit longer than this episode 2, but it was a really, really strong start to the season and to the show. So I wanted to ask you guys, episode 2, how you feeling 2 episodes in? Optical, I'll start with you. Was it satisfying for you, seeing what happens in the show and even how it translates, from show to game? What did you think?
Oh man, it was good. Like every episode I'm scared, because it's Neil Druckmann involved and all these love the game. It'd be like, oh man, are they gonna do this? Are they gonna do that? But the first episode was good and it was great, as a matter of fact. And that is not, I asked around people who didn't play the game, like my wife and my coworkers. They love episode 1 and they're like, oh man, I'm gonna start watching it now. And I love to hear that, because obviously I love the game. But episode 2, we talked about it today too, and they're just like, oh man, that was brutal. And I was just like, you like it? I was like, yeah. So from a non-gamer standpoint, they loved it. And I, as a gamer, I loved it. We're gonna talk about it later. There's some deviation to the game, which is, I would say, good, because even though we know what's gonna happen, it still kind of surprises you, kind of like, oh, because you're expecting something and it'll be like, oh, not completely different, but something, something's the end result is there, but it's still familiar to you. And the world itself, man, the world is speaking to you when you see them cross the plank. That's the exact
dude.
Shot.
Was
the shot in the game, and I was just like, oh shoot. Even the words that they used are the same. So, man, I just love the balance that they have, where being true to the game / putting their own input, but not, I guess, deviating from the end result. So completely satisfied with this episode 2 at all.
Dude, I gotta say, I'm super satisfied too, man. It's interesting too, because I know all 3 of us have played the game. So we played the game probably more than once, I'm willing to bet. I know that I have. So I say that we look at this and I'm just kind of like, okay, I know where this is headed, but they're taking slight deviations in some forks in the road, if you will. And every once in a while when I see those, I'm like, damn, that's pretty cool, actually. I do like that. One of the things that we talked about, and we'll talk about this a little bit further, the stuff in Indonesia that they show. And by the way, if you're listening to this, there's spoilers involved. So spoilers. I assume you wouldn't be listening to this episode had you not seen the episode itself. So that said, spoiler warning, here you go. There's a lot of cool stuff that happens in this episode, and really the stuff with Tess and Joel and Ellie, I think, is just really, really strong, just like it is in the game. So that said, Josh, how do you feel? Was this a satisfying continuation of episode 1? Where's your mind at with 2 episodes in?
Bro, I absolutely loved it. The first episode was amazing on its own, but this episode, I like that it was a little more action-packed to it, aside from the opening scene of the first one. But just like what Optical was saying, like the scenery and everything, like with the buildings clashed on each other, like when they're walking on the plank, and then like the small details, like when Joel's moving the filing cabinet to get through the door or lifting Tess up with his hands, like just it's all look identical to the game. And I know we'll talk about it later, but not to mention the clickers. I think they look phenomenal and they're like on point. I feel like that's a very crucial thing that they had to get right because everybody has seen zombies and everything and like hordes and whatnot. So you can make that look normal, but they had to get the clickers right. And I'm super happy that they got those right.
Dude, the clickers were probably the toughest part, Josh, to get right because that's very, very difficult. And we already know from seeing the trailers, the bloaters are not practical, like you mentioned. So they're CG because that would have been incredibly difficult.
That would have been hard.
That would have been super, super difficult. But the clickers, they managed to find a way. And damn, did they look good? I know everyone who's played the game probably saw that scene and I was like, this feels straight out of the game. Like the clickers looked perfect. I mean, it's so good, man. But
all I can think about was the nights where I'm playing late at night and all the lights are out. And then like if you're on like a surround sound, you just hear the clickers and it's like, oh, that's kind of creepy.
Yep. You hear that clicking sound, bro, in the background. You're just like, oh my God, dude. So yeah, and I've heard from people who have watched it, like with their significant others, their partner will be like grabbing their hand and stuff, saying like, "Oh my God, the clickers," because it was such a tense scene. And you know that different scene in the game, obviously, but in the basement, remember in Pittsburgh, that's the scene, bro. In Pittsburgh, when you fall down off the elevator and you're down there and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is different than what I'm used to." So, but yeah, I'm with you guys. This is a very satisfying continuation of episode 1. I just feel like it was. I don't know, man. It's just the show is hitting all the right beats. You know what I mean? I think it's just
it's scary at first, because you always feel like the worst is going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet. So we're happy. We're happy with.
You mean optical in terms of the show's quality? Like the worst hasn't
happened, right? Like I always feel like because we all love the game so much that we don't want them to stray too far from it.
Right.
You want to remain true to it because we've seen what happened to other, iterations and all that stuff. But so far, it's been good. So far.
Yeah. I mean, you can't ask for a better adaptation process than this. So, I mean, they're really taking everything that's great about the game and then adapting it to TV based on what's necessary. You know what I really liked, by the way? A continuation of this story, but when they walk through the water. When they go through that, because that's kind of like a video game thing, right? Like swimming and stuff with your character, and then he just gets out and he's a little bit wet, but it's fine, right? I always think about that. I'm like, if I was in this world and I had one set of clothes basically, and I was jumping into rivers and shit all the time, I'd be like, my clothes are soaked, right? And I hate that. But in this game, they're just kind of like, yep, we're going right through. They just kept that, and I was like, that was a nice little touch.
I think you just get to a point in this kind of world where you just don't care anymore.
Right? You're just like, I don't care.
I mean, there's guys who has a face of
Yeah, I know, right? They have mushroom faces.
So I guess, the last thing you have in your mind was like, oh, my backpack's going to get wet.
Right, exactly. Oh my God, my backpack. But if it's your one backpack and trying to find another one, you might be a little more protective over it. Like, for example, when Joel gives the guy the pills and he's like, I want the bag back. Probably because he can't find another bag, right? So he's like, I need that. And that's my one bag, my special bag. So,
I think Bella did a great job in that scene where she's acting out at the hotel thing and the skeleton falls on her. Like that was like perfect Ellie right there. I feel
Dude, it was. And my mom actually, who's not played the games at all, but she knows how much I love the games. She's been watching the show and really enjoying it. And she texted me earlier while she was watching it. She was like, Ellie's really funny. She was like, I really like Ellie. She's hilarious. And I was like, well, she is in the game too. She's like a sarcastic asshole kind of,
Basically.
And but it's really funny. And I feel like Bella Ramsey has really captured that. Do you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's more of an asshole than I want her to be, honestly.
But so is Joel, to be fair. So.
The thing, though, is they deviated from her character because in the game, she was practically raised by, what's her name?
Marlene.
Here, Marlene tied her up. It was kind of different. So you could kind of understand why she's more of a dick in this game,
right?
Because in the series, because in the game she's kind of still, she still is, but she has more of a because she was kind of childish. She was like, I went to school or something like that,
right?
But in here she was just like, I'm gonna stab you in the neck, I don't mind.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny the reaction to the chicken sandwich. That was kind of
funny. I know, right? They just have like, what do they have, beef jerky or something? And she's like, she has this told chicken sandwich. Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. I wonder where they get chickens in this world. I guess they're farming them somewhere. I don't know. It's got to be something going on. But guys, I want to ask you a secondary question here. Does the world feel authentic after 2 episodes? And I think for those who are listening, you won't see this, but because you're listening. But I will say, if you're watching this on YouTube, The background that I'm showing right now with Joel and Ellie and Tess walking through Boston, I mean, we can't complain. I mean, this world feels and looks authentic, and I feel like again, there's so much ability for rich storytelling, even outside of these characters, that of course we can pursue in another show. But I will say they're building the world and the atmosphere very effectively. What do you think, Optical?
Man, I mean, you feel like you're in the game. Even on the first episode, when the camera was from behind and the truck was driving and everything's exploding behind him, I think that kind of sets the table for this. Now, every time they walked into something, if you like, look at this scene right here, like that's the Capitol. Like if you play the game, you would kind of be like, oh, I know that. You know, it was never like, is that the museum? You know, they went to the hotel. Feels like the game. They went to the hotel. I was looking for the safe, and I was just, Joel, make a left turn.
Look for the safe.
There's a safe in there. There's a coffee machine. Press triangle. It'll be like, oh, I really miss coffee. But dude. Like you can't complain. We talked about the clicker, the scenery, even the camera shots are true to the game. I mean, if you thought that The Walking Dead, I mean, the first season of The Walking Dead, it feels like it was produced by, I don't know, like Hallmark Channel. Like, compared to this.
You mean in terms of the budget?
Yeah, the budget wise. I mean, it does, but they're in the rural, Atlanta or
Hallmark
something.
Channel.
Yeah. This one, they're in the city. I don't even know how they did this. You know, like when they were walking, there's a bunch of cars like parked, and it was like, oh, you know, and it's just, it's amazing. It's amazing how they pulled this off. And it's, I don't, is this like really Boston? Did they really
see? I heard they shot a lot of this in Canada, which is interesting too. Yeah, and they shot it in other places too. But I would say Optical, yeah, a lot of it is like real set, and then they sort of CG'd what they needed to. So
even the museum, when they walked in, and you remember that museum, even when they opened the door and then the thing fell apart, right? Like normally in the game, Joel would go around, it's like, oh, I'll meet you up there.
Yep,
it's the same exact thing. But
it's the same thing. Bro.
It was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this world really is setting the stage for, if they want to do a part 2, they can. But then also if they want to do other things, they can do that as well. Like for now, for example, like with Game of Thrones, right, Josh? So now we have House of the Dragon. We're going to have a Jon Snow show. You know, these IPs become very popular and they're very atmospheric, and like you can create multiple spinoffs of them. I feel Last of Us has that potential. So what do you think, Josh? How does the world feel after 2 episodes for you?
I mean, Optical said it best. I think it's like, it does feel very authentic, and it feels like you're actually in the game, just from like the small details, like I mentioned, with the building crashes on each other and Ellie walking on the board, and just like the small, simple stuff where you have to like move suitcases or bookshelves and whatnot to get out of the way.
Yep.
I think it's spot on. And then like when we get to the scene with Tess, as soon as I saw that building, I knew what we were heading to. It looked pretty much spot on with the game and whatnot. And then when the fungus is on the walls, like, you know, it's about to get serious. Like I think they did amazing. I don't see how they could have done it better as far as the visuals. It looks just like the video game to me. Like, and I get very excited. Like I got very like excited, and I was looking for all like the little Easter eggs while I was watching it and whatnot.
Dude,
it was pretty cool.
That's crazy, Josh, because you can spot so many Easter eggs. Like there's so many little things here and there where you're just like, oh, dude, that's a reference. That's a reference to the game. And like, you know, with Neil Druckmann directing this episode, I'm sure that was something he monitored very closely. But it was funny because I even watched my brother showed me an Easter egg video that I think it was Heavy Spoilers on YouTube made from the first episode. And even I, the biggest Last of Us fan ever, did not spot some of them. There were some things I'm like, oh shit, I missed that. Like there was one thing, like this was like kind of an Uncharted thing, but Sarah is wearing one of the shirts that Nathan Drake wears as young Nathan Drake. Optical, did you spot that?
Yeah. When she turned around, it's like is it like a concert with the?
Yep, exactly. Yeah, young Nathan Drake wore that. I think in Uncharted 4 when they did flashbacks. Yeah. So it was stuff like that I was like, that's a real deep cut right there. That's like I would never have spotted that. Like and the posters on the walls and stuff. There were other things I can't remember, but like there's a lot of little Easter eggs like that. So. I think this show obviously is made by people who have a deep admiration for the game. And I think that shines through, instead of saying like, yes, they want to make money, but it's like, I want to make money, but also I want to do it right. And they love the game, and they have people who understand the source material.
I'm sorry, Josh. I was just gonna say, like, I wish this set was something that we could visit. You know, sometimes,
yes,
like The Hobbit. You know, like, oh, they
like the Shire.
You can visit it. Like, if you can visit this and pay I would pay absurd amount of money just to be in it,
just to come hang out for a day and take some pictures. Yeah. What were we gonna say, Josh? Go ahead.
No, I was gonna touch back on what you said about them doing like spinoffs. Do you think that might be like a dangerous road for them? Because there are like some very hardcore fans that might like really dig into them if they don't do a spin-off. Like, I don't know, do you think that's just like a dangerous road, or should they just stick to the games?
It could, dude, it could be. I actually think it would be a pretty cool sort of deviation. I think people would like it as long dude, winning cures everything. So if it's done well, people will buy into it. So say you did a Tommy spinoff, maybe some time in Jackson he was spending where Joel's not around, right? And stuff like that, maybe in the years that they're separated. Or we talked about this a little bit, Josh, like what I really want to see, and I'm hoping they do this, but I don't think they will, for The Last of Us Part 3, the game, I would actually prefer that they go back and not forward. Go back to Joel and Tommy's years in the apocalypse, surviving, maybe their hunter years, whatever. Sort of similar to kind of like, you know, not exactly the same, but Red Dead 2 compared to Red Dead 1, right? With Red Dead 2, you go back with Arthur Morgan instead of, you know, forward, right? With new characters. But I actually think that would be pretty cool. So maybe they could do something like that to keep Pedro around a little bit longer.
That'd be pretty smart.
You know, or maybe they change part 2 story. I know half the audience will love it and half will hate that, but you know, maybe they change it a little bit and maybe the result's still the same, but they reorder some things a little bit, you know, to keep Pedro around for most of the second season. And then he gets killed. Like that could be something they do. But I would think spinoffs would be I actually think, I don't think HBO gets into anything necessarily like this without the hope that it could lead to
do spinoffs.
Yeah, right. It could lead to something. And same with Amazon, where they're going to do God of War, right? They probably know. They're like, well, we know we could make an Atreus show. We could make other stuff, like make a Freya show, right? Same stuff. So, you know, it can lead to other things. So,
I think it'd be very funny if they redeem Abby and give her own spinoff show and everybody loves it.
And everyone loves her. That would be like, I was wrong the whole time. I was wrong the whole time about Abby.
Well, you could still have another arm that you could.
Yeah, I can put Abby right there. Yeah. I can put her right there, exactly. Because I got all Joel and Ellie stuff on this one. But guys, I want to ask you another question too as we move to our next topic. The explanation of how the infection spread. Because this is actually pretty interesting. And for people who have not seen, or rather played the game or experienced it, that this is different. This is different than what we have in the game. In the game, they really don't touch on the infection and how it occurs that much. It's just kind of like, you know what? Outbreak night happens. Sarah dies. We're 20 years in the future. Here it is. That's really about it. Unless there's maybe some other material outside of that that I'm really just not aware of. But I know most of the stuff pretty well, and I don't think they ever really talked about it in great detail. It's just kind of like, well, it just happened, right? And cordyceps is a thing, and it took people over and so forth. But in this one, we get some scenes of Indonesia showing a scientist going in, spotting an early infector, basically, an early infected, right? And then they talk about the wheat. They talk about maybe it buried itself in wheat, and then all the people that were eating wheat now became infected. So, Optical, do we like the explanation of how this infection spread, or at least some insight into it? Because I actually think it was a pretty cool addition.
I wish that we would get that every episode now, and in small pieces, so we can put it all together, right? Outside of the lady laying down there naked, just like
yeah, it was like, this is HBO for you.
Way too long. We have to see
that threw me off guard.
It was just like, are those fungus or nope?
No, that's not fungus.
Nope, they're bush. They're bush.
It's the bush.
It's the bush.
That's the cordyceps
coming out.
Yeah.
Alive. No, I love it. I actually love it because, like you said, even on Walking Dead, like, because a lot of people are comparing this to Walking Dead, and I keep on defending. It's like, they're not zombies. It's like, you know, I'm getting all defensive. It's like,
I know, right? I'm defensive of your IP.
They're not zombies. Yeesh, like a nerd one. But yeah. So I told, it was like, they didn't explain how the entire outbreak occurred. So I like the fact that I don't know why the game never really tackled it. I guess to leave the door open for a prequel. For the game, like you said. So in here, we have a little bit of background. We can expand on that. Hey, heck, we can even start at Indonesia if we want to, and be global if I'm HBO. It's like, hey, you know what? We are embracing our Asian brothers and sisters. So we're going to make, you know, a show about that. And I think it'll be interesting. You know, I don't know how successful it would be, but it leaves the door open. At least we have some sort of, I guess, baseline on, it's not just, hey, it just happened, so deal with it 20 years later, and now everyone's like killing each other. That's why I still, even though it's prequel, hey, it worked for Star Wars. And Star Wars, their fan base are they would hate you. As long, if you don't like this, the OT, they would hate you. But even after that, there's the sequel, there's a prequel. So if they could do that, hey, I'm open for just a brief explanation. I don't want it to be spoon fed to me. At least I knew where it happened, how it happened. Um, the bombing, they tackled that because remember the two buildings were bombed. That's why they're like leaning to each other. So at least it was like, oh, bomb everyone. It was like, ooh, that's where they got the idea.
Exactly. They got it from Indonesia. Yeah.
Like, why did you guys listen to Indonesians first and foremost?
So that's what it was.
It's like it didn't work for them. What do you think it will work for you?
Right.
But at least they tackled that. And every 5 minutes of an episode, I wouldn't be opposed to getting snippets and put them together. And hey, somebody on YouTube would put that together. And it'll be like a 30-minute thing. So I love it though.
Right. And optical, we also have to talk about too, I guess we'll get into that in the next topic, but just the changes to the infected in general. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but just the cordyceps coming from the mouth, the way it's sort of like a hive mind where they're connected. If you step on one, you could alert the whole horde and stuff like that. It's really interesting. But Josh, I want to ask you, with the explanation of the infection and maybe how it spread, how interesting did you find that whole concept in that addition? Because to me, I thought it was pretty cool to see another side of the world here. In Last of Us Part 2, we get to see California and some other stuff like that, and and Seattle and things like that. We're exploring a bit, but in this one, Indonesia, and then also I thought it was really cool. And as far as the Indonesian scenes went, as like her just saying like, well, he's like, well, what can we do? We need medicine. She was like, there is no medicine, doesn't exist. She was like, it's just not a thing. You know what your medicine is? A bomb. Your medicine, like a bomb is your medicine. So what did you think about that whole scenes and how they played out, Josh?
I actually really liked it. I think it's very tasteful that they keep adding to the story. And then I like back to that scene. I like it. I like how tense it gets, like, and you can see how scared and how like severe the situation is where she's like, there is no cure.
Right.
We're basically all just screwed. And then the whole bombing thing, like there was no even like last case scenario bombing. She went like straight for that. And I don't know. I like how they're adding to the story, like you said, because we didn't really get that much in the game itself. So it's just, I don't know, I'm a big fan of how they're adding to it. And then as far as like how the different changes to the infected, how like with the hive mind and stuff, I find that all very, very interesting. And it gets kind of creepy how when it's the things are like sticking out of their mouths, like that the one scene we'll probably get to with Test towards the end. I thought that's gross. I did not.
It was, dude. It was gross.
I was like, that makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, I know, right? It was like zombie. I know not zombies, as Optical said, but still, it was like a zombie kissing makeout scene. So it was really interesting. But I do like, how that happens. But it does make me kind of think as we get to this. And again, this is spoilery, but it makes me think of the idea like, well, what is Ellie's value then? Because if you can't really make a cure, maybe a vaccine, maybe a medicine, maybe it's like, well, we didn't think we could until Ellie came along, but I'm not sure how they're going to play that because they seem to be really focusing on the thing of there is no cure, there is no medicine, because they did that whole first scene in 1968 where they showed that too. And then now this Indonesian scientist is saying that. So it's interesting to see what Ellie's purpose is potentially going to be.
Maybe it'll be like a World War Z type thing where it's like they're not necessarily trying to find a cure, just to find a way for humanity to pretty much live amongst everything until everything kind of dies down. Maybe it could be something like that.
Right. Exactly. Maybe something where like, maybe Ellie's infection can lead to something that kills the cordyceps, something like that. It could be really interesting. But yeah, I'm with you guys. I like the explanation of how the infections could spread and showing other parts of the world. I think that was pretty cool, actually. I thought it was a nice inclusion. So,
just to expand on that, because isn't that, I love the scene where the lady, because it is consistent to the first episode where they were like, oh, so what's the cure? No, there's no cure.
Yeah.
And then these are experts, right? These are experts.
Right. Yeah.
Who's scared out of their life. And even the woman was just like, can I at least go home to my family? It just shows you, I would say, those are the small little things. It's like, oh shit, things just got real. And it just shows you, it's like, oh man, there's more to this. And to your point, I think that's what just Ellie makes it so valuable. It's like, oh, there's no cure, yet we are risking our life for this girl. So maybe she is the great hope, So I think that just ups her value that much more, at least in my eyes. For those who is not watching, who doesn't know that Ellie's the cure, well, we don't know that, but it's just a great scene overall, in my opinion.
Well, Joel was still like, let's shoot this girl. he didn't even care, bro. He was like, I want to live. He's like, I don't care about the cure, none of it. So he also is very much a skeptic. He doesn't really buy into it. So, yeah.
Do you guys find it wild that they keep, like they've said multiple times that obviously people want turned to clickers, but like this is an actual possible thing when it comes to fungus and whatnot.
Yeah, they keep
It's
harping
kind
on
of
that.
crazy.
Yeah. Like Troy Baker was even talking about it. I saw on like the marketing materials and stuff. They were like, this could potentially happen. They were like, this could be a thing, right? So because I know they mentioned in the one scene, if the world gets hotter, if the world gets warmer, and then the fungus can live in degrees that are higher than 94 degrees, which humans were like 98, usually something like that. So they could live in us as a host. That would be pretty crazy. I'm not eating any more wheat. That's what I know. No more wheat for any of us. So, but it's pretty interesting. But how do you guys feel about the changes to the infected overall? Because this is something, we touched on at least briefly so far, but I'm just curious about the hive mind stuff, the cordyceps, and how the cordyceps really, in this show more so than ever, like in the game, it did have a mind of its own, so to speak, because it controlled the host. But in this show, it's almost like taking that a step further. So the cordyceps is like one big almost entity or something. And it's like taking control of everything and everyone, and it's like one big hive mind. So it's almost like if you found like the mothership of the cordyceps, you could destroy everything. Something like killing the Night King and it kills all the walkers, right? So it's kind of like that's how it's feeling. Optical, how do you feel about the changes to the infected to give them sort of a, I don't know, more connected sort of purpose? What do you think?
Man, for now, I don't know how it's gonna play out. Like you said, it could be cheesy at the end, right? Like, hey, they killed this. It's probably underneath the ground, and we killed it off, so everything's okay now. I don't want it to be like that. I don't want it to be like, oh God,
Right.
there you go.
I hate that so much.
But it'll be interesting. I don't know how I feel about it yet, especially towards. I know why they did what they did towards the end, because they even explained it. It was like, oh, in the game it's soldiers, but we can't possibly do that because you won't feel the effects. So because it's different. You've been running away from soldiers. We're not going to run away from soldiers here. They're not going to spend 30 minutes shooting soldiers and whatnot. I get it from that scene, but moving forward, how they use this information, I'm a little scared. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little scared because this might be a crutch for them. It's like, oh, because you stepped on this. Now there's like a lot of zombies in your location, which never really happened in the game. So yes, I'm curious to see where they bring this. One good thing about Last of Us, though, is so far, I mean, at least on the game, everything's kind of scientific. This is not like a zombie apocalypse. It's there's a scientific explanation to it. I don't know how they
Get a young Last of Us fan who joined us.
Yeah, I don't know how they're gonna do this, but I mean, so far they have an explanation, but we'll see. So far, I'm okay. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with it too. I actually kind of like deviations. They at least have me intrigued. They have me curious. So I would say that overall, I'm very happy with the direction they're taking because it's different. It's a little bit. I like that they're putting their own little spin on it while also retaining what made the original great about this. So, Josh, how are you feeling about this with the changes of the infected? Are you positive, warm, cold? What do you think?
I honestly kind of like it because I think it adds to the suspense. Like when they're walking around, just like how Ellie, for example, she stepped on the arm, and then they all came swarming. I like that aspects to it because it's like I think it just adds to it, and I think it was like really cool. Like in this scene right here, when they realized when they were selling the dead bodies, you can see it coming out of the ground, and then that's when it kind of clicked. So like it's not even necessarily have to be kind of like how it looked on the staircase where it's visible. It can be blended into the ground. Like you don't even know. Like you could think you're perfectly fine, then you step on one thing, and then 2 minutes later you have a horde running towards you. So I like it. I think it adds to the suspense of the overall show.
Yeah, I think so too, man. And I think it's one of those where absolutely you would have no idea. And then when you step on something, you for sure, you bring that whole horde, and it does create a little bit of tension. You are right about that because you think that any wrong step, so it can be like Optical said, it could be a crutch for the showrunners to be like, let's put some tension into this scene. Let's have them step on this cordyceps, and then everyone's going to come running towards them. But it also creates more tension because you're like, oh my God, they could any moment, sort of infiltrate a hive of infected that could come and just destroy everyone. So it creates a little more tension in that respect as well. So I kind of like that. I hope they use more clickers, honestly. I hope we see, because that one was like almost turning into a clicker, the one that was making out with Tess. So that one eventually turns, I think it's like kind of starting to become clickerish. But I hope they don't say like, oh, we're not going to have the clickers that much. They're kind of like sporadic. I think they should be in it pretty frequently. They're in the game pretty often. So
they're everywhere.
Yeah, they're everywhere. So I would say I don't want it to be like a super rare thing with the clickers where they're like just in it, every 3 episodes or something. Like I think they should be around. So that's what I'd say. Anyway, guys, we got a picture up on the screen. And for those who cannot see, if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever, was Tess' death executed well? And I'm showing the picture of Tess making out with the zombie with the cordyceps infection. So this is a very intense scene, and this is not what I expected. Because Tess does not make out with a zombie in the original game. So in this one, she does, though. So Optical, I want to ask you, do you think Tess's death was executed well overall? For me, I'd say probably, but what do you think?
First and foremost, I can't eat seaweeds anymore.
Nope, never again, bro.
I'll be a no from here on out. It obviously, from somebody who played the game, I kind of like that more because it felt like, yes, she sacrificed herself, but she went out swinging. Here, it's kind of like a scared sacrifice compared to the game where we're like, just go, I got this. Give me a gun and I'll take care of this. In here, especially in this moment, she was kind of like rattled, making out. Like we talked about it earlier. She's seen clickers before. She's been here for 20 years. This is nothing new to her. But like, oh my God, is this a clicker? Is she gonna? Oh God, no, she's seen her before. She has seen this before. So I get it. Like at the end of the day, she sacrificed herself so they could escape, and that's beautiful. I think that's very beautiful. It's just in the game, she was badass till the end. I guess that's how I would describe this. In here, she was more kind of like, oh, this lighter gonna light up? Jesus Christ, she's coming over.
The worst lighter in the world.
Oh God. Is that a tongue? No. Oh, the final light lit up. Is it executed? I suppose, because they did explain it. They couldn't do the soldier scene. They said it's not feasible. So I guess this is the next viable option. But at the end of the day, I'm okay with it because the people who didn't watch the show that I asked, they were like, oh, that's pretty awesome. So I was just like, all right, if you guys are satisfied, even though I played a game, I was expecting different outcome, not different outcome, different scene. The outcome is the same. Well, she sacrificed herself to let them escape. And with that, I'm okay. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think overall I was satisfied, but the game is a little bit better. And I felt that way with Sarah's death too, actually. With Sarah's death, I felt like, yeah, that was good. I think it was well executed, but the game did it a little bit better. And I think also, maybe I'm just a little bit of a purist with the game, but because it's hard to top that. But I do feel like with Tess's death in the game, I'm with you, Optical, was a little more impactful, I guess I would say. A little more, because maybe I got to spend more time with her. Maybe that's why. Like that could be it too. Where in the show you get 2 episodes with her and she's not even really in it that much in the first episode, and then she just dies, so it doesn't feel as like earned. You know what I mean?
I would say this, Will, though, because I know this is a game and this is not the first game adaptation. The difference, though, is this game is like a movie. So in my opinion, like the biggest strength of the game, because we've seen zombie pictures before. Like honestly, the story is not that unique. We've seen this. Oh, the girl's the cure, blah blah blah. But the beauty of the game is in the small details on it, and in the dialogues, and so in the camera shots and all that stuff. Not because the gameplay is good, but we've never seen this before. So as far as deviating from those, I think you're hurting yourself if you deviate too much, because the game itself is cinematic already. If you take out all the gameplay and compile the cinematic views, it'll be a movie. Right. So if you stray away from that, I think you are hurting yourself as a filmmaker, because and in this case, it didn't turn out too bad. But like we said, the game itself is pretty awesome already. So don't deviate too much. They did, but the end result's still okay. But it's hard. It's hard.
It is tough. Well, Josh, where do you land on this one? Do you think Tess's death was executed well overall? Did you feel it?
I kind of agree with you guys that I think I preferred the game way a little more, but I do think that this version of it did fit how the show is kind of going right now. I mean, it was still impactful, but I do prefer how the game went. But this scene, like you just leave it on the screen, man.
I know, right? I gotta gross you guys out. No more wheat ever.
No more. But I think it was executed really well. I like that. Like I said, I prefer the game, but I do like how they did it. It made more sense for the current story. Her death was still meaningful. I do think the reason why maybe the game hit more, because like you said, we did get more time with the character versus here we get, I think if you add the 2 episodes together, maybe 30-40 minutes total with this character. Right. So we didn't really get that kind of connection with her. But I mean, I do like it for what it was. I just really hated this. I could have gone without that.
With the zombie making out scene. Yeah. So, and I thought it was an interesting way to say, like, the zombie is trying to kickstart the infection to make it spread a little bit more faster, initiate it, because it already recognizes Tess is infected, which is why it's kind of like we were talking about, like World War Z, right? Where when you're sick, the zombies just kind of run past you because they don't see you as viable prey. But in this one, that's basically what they did too, because of like, well, she's already infected. So, you know, but it's interesting in the game, they never really touch on this that much. The zombies here aren't looking to eat you. They're just looking to infect you. Like they're just looking to bite you and maybe, you know, and bite you a little bit and then move on. Like they said, the zombie could still rip you apart. I get that. Maybe that's kind of where the separation is. It's kind of like, well, they're not looking to just destroy you necessarily. They're looking to kind of, and that's why the infection is a little bit smarter this time than it is in the game. They're looking to just infect you and move on, because the zombie could have tore Tess apart and then it would have been the end of it. But it did.
I think that they were hinting that the clickers are the ones that really tear people apart, and these are the ones that kind of just spread it. Because even like they were kind of confused, like they never seen a body be ripped when they were walking to the building, a body be ripped like that, and then that's when like they kind of got like a red flag, like okay, there's something different out here.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Exactly. The clickers and the bloaters are the ones that want to rip you apart. Yeah. Which is interesting because they're the more advanced infections. So.
Right. And in the game, for the most part, you see the one like hunking down and eating are the runners.
Right.
The clickers are just sleeping, you know, for the most part.
Yeah, they're just like chilling.
Just chilling there.
Yeah, just chilling. But yeah, so guys, I want to ask you the question too, as we, got a couple more here. What do we expect to see in episode 3? Because I know they showed a little bit of a teaser and we got to see Bill and Frank, which we know from the game that Frank, the only time you saw Frank was when he was hanging, because that's the only time you saw Frank at all. You heard you saw some notes from him, rather, talking about how he hated Bill so much. But in this game, it appears like Frank is going to get a little more development. And then Bill's going to get some development as well, because Bill didn't really get that much development in the game either. He's just kind of there for a couple hours. You go on an adventure with him real quick to get the battery, and then you move on, right? And that's pretty much the end of Bill. So what do you guys think what you're going to see in episode 3 here? Because we're about to be a third of the way done this season. What do you think, Optical?
I mean, I would love to see more of Bill and Frank, honestly, because like you said, Bill looks like an interesting character, and we're talking about like deviating and branching out. Bill, you could have a spin-off with Bill, because Bill is just an interesting character altogether, with his booby traps and him not getting along with Frank. He considers him his friend, yet they hate each other so much. They didn't want to go out of the city. Frank wants to go out of the city, and then he stole Bill's battery, and then it end up there. It's a nice dynamic. So I am expecting an entire episode dedicated to Bill and Frank. I'm not expecting to see Frank in that rafters right away.
No.
I'm kind of leaning towards that, and we can't see like 3 deaths in every episode.
1 death per episode. Yeah.
It's just like, it's too gruesome for some people. I'm expecting this to be a little bit more chill, because Bill is kind of funny. I'm expecting this to be a little bit more chill than that, just to give us a break from death. And then maybe we see Frank at around episode 4. But I don't know, man. Like we were talking about this earlier. We're kind of moving in a slower pace than expected, because it's only 9 episodes, yet we're a third of the way, and game wise we got a lot of tackle with the DLC. So and you're sacrificing something, like with Tess, we talked about it earlier. You guys didn't feel the connection right away because we got like an episode or 2 episodes of Tess, but maybe if we kind of went with her with 3 episodes, maybe her death would be more, not for us because we know Tess, but for some people who has not played a game, right, is it as impactful to them than it is to us? So I don't know. I hope that this is an episode and a half at least, but who knows?
Yeah, I guess we're gonna find out, dude. But Josh, where do you fall on this one in terms of what do you expect to see in episode 3? Because I think we're obviously going to see a lot of Bill stuff here, but it almost looks like flashbacks too, like some flashbacks of Joel. Because I know there's the one scene in the preview that shows Bill, like there's this is like a big fight. They're obviously attacking Bill's town, and then Bill's injured here, and then he says, "Go get Joel." So obviously, remember in the game when he's like, "Joel, I owe Joel some favors."
Yeah.
So they never really talk about that or really what it was. And then Joel's like, "Yeah, you do fucking owe me." So I'm assuming now they're going to touch on that here. What do you think, Josh?
I think it's going to be all backstory for Bill and Frank. And I think, like you said, we're going to get to see what Joel did to why he owes Joel a favor. And I think we're not going to see Joel and Ellie again, so maybe the end of the episode, because I think they're going to keep this, because like I said, they have a lot of ground to cover in 7 more episodes. So I think that they're going to show all of their backstory, and then we're going to get Ellie and Joel at the very end. And I don't know, they're on a track record. I'm just expecting somebody to die every episode at this point. But I don't know if we're going to get filler episodes, because there's so much ground to cover, which I kind of like that because like a lot of the Disney Plus shows, for example, like there's too many filler episodes. Like sometimes they just need to get to the point, and I think that's what the show's going to do. Because like you guys said, there's still a lot more that they need to get to before, if they're really going to finish the whole first game in one season.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the plan so far, as they said. So I don't know, man. I don't know how they're going to do that, but that's actually our final question of the evening. I want to ask you guys, how in the hell are they going to wrap this up in 9 episodes? Because like we've talked about, that they're about to hit Bill's town. That's maybe a couple, 3 to 4 hours into the game, right? I guess maybe they're on pace, because I got to think about, the game is really like maybe 15 to 20 hours, right? So, and Bill's town is probably like 4 hours into the game. So maybe they're on pace, but it just seems like there's a lot to still tackle here. Mm-hmm. And there's only going to be 6 more episodes after this. We're going to be a third of the way done the season. So at that point, how are they going to wrap this up, Optical? Or do you think there's going to be any corners cut here? Because I'm also wondering if there's the possibility of them saying, we tricked y'all. We said it was going to be 1 season, but it ain't. It's going to be 2. I'm wondering if that's going to be the case, Optical. What do you think?
That's what I'm afraid of, man. Because I maybe it's just me. I love the show so much, and I love the game. And I talked about this earlier. The beauty of the game is on the small details to it. You know, right. When you're like playing the game and you pick up a letter in the letter, and then you go to another town, like Ish. I don't know if you kept on reading Ish's letter. It was like, oh, he bunked up. I think that's the beauty of the game, is those small details. Like, oh, what happened to Ish? You know, I know he went to the sewers, and then he went out. I kind of want them to tackle those. Like, I want to meet Ish. I want to meet that, because on the surface, this is just for somebody who didn't play the game, this is a zombie TV show, and I don't want it to be portrayed that way. You know, like, I don't want this to be a Walking Dead, like somebody's dying all the time. Oh, you get a new one. Oh, she's the cure. Cool, we've seen that. But if you navigate it, I think that's the beauty of the game, is you're interested in those characters that you haven't seen, probably never will. You know, like when you went to the boat and it was like, oh, don't step on my skeleton, you know, when you find it. It was like those small details I love about the game. You know, like the couple who left, and you know, it was like, oh, we let Gadget out, their dog. I want to see those. But with 9 episodes, obviously that's not going to happen. Or maybe that's too much to ask. I'm asking too much here. But I wouldn't even be upset if they pulled that back. It's like, you know what? Yeah, we're going to end it around the winter time. I'll be like, right. Cool. You know what? I'm all for it, as long as it doesn't sacrifice the integrity of the show. So like I said, in the surface, that's what made the game so good. It's because of the layers in it. Because at the end of the day, if not, it's left for blood. You know, but there's so many intangibles of the game that obviously it's hard to translate to a TV show. But with 9 episodes as well, I guess they run through it. I guess you can finish it, but I'm not in a hurry. I mean, I waited for this for 10 years. You know, I want to savor every moment of it. So I don't want it to feel rushed. But I guess if you do it, as long as they do Sam good and don't rush that, I'm okay. In the giraffe, if they don't rush that, I'm okay with that. Because they won't feel, like if you're watching it, they won't feel the torture that we did to get to the giraffe. They won't. They're not going to play the game. They're not going to die multiple times. But I don't know how you're going to convey that to a TV show. I can assure you can't convey that in an hour. So that's what I'm afraid of. So I don't know. We'll see.
I think we're going to have a clearer picture, Optical, in about 2 to 3 episodes. Because if we're another 2 to 3 episodes in and they're still like barely, which they're not going to, it's Kansas City now instead of Pittsburgh apparently. But if they're barely to Kansas City and we're on episode 6, I'm going to be like, this ain't being done in 1 season. Yeah. There's no way, right? So I think we're going to have a clearer picture after the next maybe 2 or 3 episodes. So Josh, what do you think about this? How are they going to wrap this up in 9? Because there's still a lot of content to cover here.
I honestly don't know. The only way I can realistically see them doing that is, like you guys said, by cutting some things out. Right. But like Optical said, like those small details are what made the game so special in a way. So if they cut that out, they're kind of taking a part of it. So I really don't know. I really hope they do that, what you said, where they're like, psych, there's a season 2, because I think they can get 2, possibly even 3 seasons out of that one game, especially if they take their time with all these characters. But at the same time, I play devil's advocate. There's a part of me kind of likes it because it kind of keeps us guessing. Like it's kind of like interesting and exciting to know, like, are they going to change this? Are they going to be able to do that? I kind of like that, the kind of suspense to it, not knowing how they're going to do it. But if they do what you said and give us a surprise season 2 with based off the first game, I would not be mad at all.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't either. I would love to see a second season, but I'm with you guys, and I don't want them to rush through things because that's part of the power of the game and really part of the powerful nature of video game storytelling in general. Because you spend so much time with the characters that, for one, you're controlling them, so you feel very invested in them, but also, two, the amount of time that you spend with them. They become very personal to you. And I think that's why video game storytelling can be so powerful. That's why I feel like I do about Joel and Ellie and Jin Sakai and Cloud and Kratos and all those characters, because you spend so much time with them and you watch them change over 20 to 30 hours, right? And then after that, you're like, man, that's why those moments where Henry and Sam feels more impactful, because you spent 4 to 5 hours with them or less, right? Where you're just like, man, I got connected to them and now they've been ripped away, right? And that's kind of what it does. But if you spend like an hour with Henry and Sam, it's not as impactful. You know what I mean? Like you guys were talking about, that context matters. So I feel like they have to take their time with that. Like Henry and Sam probably need at least 2 episodes, like
at a minimum,
to make their death mean anything.
I would be offended if you show Henry and Sam in the beginning of, let's say, episode 6, and then I don't want to do spoilers here. In episode 7, be like, dude, because it's different with us. Like, we were alone with Ellie all this time. Finally, we met someone. Yes, somebody can help us. With the truck. What do you call that? The truck with a turret on it. Like,
the military
shooting at us.
Whatever.
And finally, we got somebody who can help us. And then 3 hours later or 4 hours later, like, what the hell did I just watch?
Right.
And if you can't do that in an hour, and I'm used to Game of Thrones, where first episode is great, 2 to 8 sucks, 9 is pretty good, and then 10 is watch out for the next season.
Right.
So I'm okay. Like, sometimes a great storytelling needs time. You let it marinate. And I think this is what this series needs, because like I said, otherwise it's just a generic zombie movie with a girl being the cure. That's it.
Right. I have a feeling they might actually change some stuff up on us, so we don't just assume we know everything that's going to happen. So, like, what if they make like Tommy a bad guy or something like that? Like, I think they might change some stuff up on it to kind of throw us a curveball or something.
Right. Maybe so. But I mean, I actually really like what they've done with Tommy so far. So I hope, and again, Gabriel Luna could be one of those that they keep around for another season or something. Especially if they do part 2 in any capacity, because Tommy is very important in part 2.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I think that could be one of the things where, for sure, where Gabriel Luna has obviously been cast for multiple seasons of this thing, because, again, if he just wanted to sign on for one, that's great. But I mean, I feel like these guys know when they have something good, when they have a good script in front of them, and they're probably like, you know what, this is pretty fucking good. So we should probably roll with this for a couple seasons at least. I don't think they're going to do 9 seasons of this, but I think they could do 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, and then just call it a day after that. Game of Thrones did what? 8, right? So
8.
Yeah. I mean,
I think 3 would be a good spot for this show.
Yeah, 3 to 4, I think would be fine. And then like maybe do the first 2 seasons for part 1, and then the next 2 seasons for part 2. And then again, this is gonna piss off half the people, but with part 2, if you maybe have that story but reconstruct it a bit, like change it around to make it feel a little more impact, like maybe spend more time with Abby before she kills Joel, then things could change. I feel like you could get a little more connected to her before she does something that is unthinkable and kills your favorite character. It's a little bit different, I'd say. But
did you guys feel bad for her at all when you played that game? Like,
hell no.
How you, like when you go back and you have to play through the whole game again, but as her, did a part of you like kind of think like, well, maybe, and then you're like, nah, fuck that.
Nah, I was like, fuck her, dude.
I think everyone have her killed like 25 times. When the first time you can control her, it's like, okay, Abby, you're gonna die.
So it was just a matter, Josh, of like, if they had constructed it a little bit differently, I think it could have worked. But I think also Abby was just a very unlikable character. She's just like, there's just not a lot to latch onto with her. Like she's not sympathetic in any way. Like her dad attacked Joel. So, I know this is not the topic, but I could go on about this for like an hour. But no, it's good because you got me rambling on that one, because I could go on. And I know some people are going to hate me for that, but it's fine. That's my take on Last of Us 2. There's some good things, but don't love it overall. But overall, I think we're all happy with the way this show is going. and it's gonna wrap up in 9 episodes. So
I'm
I
excited.
guess,
Dude,
me too.
that's why I feel like they should take their time, because what are they really rushing for? To get to Last of Us 2?
Yeah, to get the last one.
It's just like, you really want to wrap this up so you can jump into this mess of a story. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm enjoying the ride so far, and I'm so happy to hear non-gamers. So I have like 4 coworkers who watches this, and I just couldn't tell them what's gonna happen next, because I just, kind of like, yeah, the guy that you're gonna like, yep.
Mm.
I don't know. Like I'm the result for us is going to be the same, in my opinion. The 3 of us, the results of us, whether it finishes at 9 episodes or next season, we're still going to love it. But I want people to love it. I want it to have the recognition it deserves, because this, like how we collect hot toys, you'd be like, oh, this is not dolls. This is the game where we're like, okay, so do you think it's still a video game? Kind of like,
Right,
this
right.
is where you smack the people in the face, which is just like, all right, this is not, no offense to GTA or Fortnite. It's like, this is a video game adaptation. And I kind of want that for the world to see and not rush. Because if you do, and we're like,
Right.
oh, look at this nerds,
I like that too, because people who haven't played the game can really get into, like my girlfriend, for example. She saw me play here and there, but she didn't know about the Sarah scene. And so seeing her reaction during the first episode, I was like, yes, that's what I like.
That's the reaction. That's the reaction. I remember when I played the game for the first time, Josh, I was just like, damn. They really did that.
That threw me off.
Yeah, and I think people kind of it's funny, you're almost expecting it, but it still surprises you because and how it happens. Because on the cover, it's not Sarah, it's Joel and Ellie. So you're kind of like, well, something's got to go wrong here, because I've seen the cover of the game, but you don't expect it to happen like that. And then it does, and it's just like a gut punch, dude.
Yeah.
Right to start. So yeah, I'm excited. I think we're all pretty excited about this. Guys, to wrap up our thoughts here, what would you give episode 2? I gave episode 1 a 9.5. I think I'm about a 9 for episode 2. What do you think, Optical?
Same 9. If I would say the biggest key factor for me was the death of Tess. If that was the same as the game, it would have been 9.5.
Right.
It's 10 is really hard to give, but 9.5. But again, it's 0.5, not a big deal.
Yeah, makes sense. What about you, Josh? Where would you rate it?
I would give it a 9. I was very happy with the clicker sold it for me. That was the main thing. I was very, very worried about. I didn't want them to look too CGI, but once I realized it was prosthetics, I was very happy with how it came out.
Yeah, me too, bro. It looked absolutely amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for participating in this Last of Us discussion with me, and thank you so much for listening to everyone out there and watching. You can catch this content. I'm not sure where it's going to be housed on the Everything The Last of Us channel for now, but it could go over to Will Foxification soon. And if you guys are listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever, thank you so much for listening. And we'll be back with weekly episodes every Monday evening for us. I'm not sure when they'll post for everyone else, but we record them on Monday evenings so we can get them to you guys as quickly as possible. That said, thank you so much to my amazing panel. And thank you so much for listening, guys. Enjoy episode 3. And we'll be back next week to talk that with you. Let's roll the outro. Peace out. Bye.